There is an attitude that Jesus has in the Gospels of this passion that we might well meditate on this week in our own personal lives. Contrast the attitude of Jesus who is experiencing the suffering and the death of the innocent and the arrogance of his accusers. And how does Jesus address this? How does he absorb all this unfairness? He accepts it. It's part of his mission. But he accepts it with humility. Now, humility is the virtue I'm going to propose to us today that we reflect on in our lives this week in particular. Humility. The word humility comes from the Greek word humus, earth, dirt. It means being down to earth, being real as opposed to being fake, having an appropriate sense of self and not an inflated ego, being who we are and not pretending to be who we are not. Part of our sinfulness is in this. We lack humility. And our salvation is in our coming to accept what it really means. Now let's say what humility isn't. Humility is not being a doormat so that people can continue to walk over you and be abusive to you. No. There's enough of that to go around. Humility is more about a sense of self that is real. I am not above my grade, nor am I below it, because a lot of low self-esteem is not humility either. It's I hate myself. That's not a virtue. We need to respect and love the person that God created us to be, always in need of the one who will take care of us and sustain us when we are beyond the things that we have to face in our daily lives. Humility is knowing where we fit in the order. Jesus models this for us. In the second reading from today, we heard in the letter to the Philippians, Jesus did not cling to his divinity. He didn't hang on to it in such a way that he wouldn't leave it to come to be among us. He kind of left it behind in that image and came among us in the flesh as a human being, living quietly all those years, and then ultimately fulfilling a mission where he suffered the death of the innocent and where he gave up all. He did not cling to his divinity, but he became like us in all things but sin. And he suffered and died and was raised. And the glory of God is with him now because he went through this whole thing. Now, Jesus did not do this for himself. He didn't need to bother. This is for us and the human race. We have to follow this path of humility to glory in life. Jesus models that for us as people of faith. But we also need other human models of what humility is. Because when we see it, sometimes it rubs off on us and it gets our attention. Now, have you been watching this new Pope? I cannot stop watching this man's behavior. By that I mean, I click on the Vatican website every day, see what is he up to today? He keeps doing new and strange and different things. When the cardinals, which I would put under the category of humility in that role. When the cardinals elected him and went back to have supper or after the Mass, they had his limousine now ready for him to go. So he pushed that aside and sat in the second row on the bus with the cardinals. Well, I don't think they were ready for that. They're going to have an unemployed chauffeur. So that, and then what else do you see? He's been having Mass. Well, last Sunday he had Mass at the St. Anne's Church, at the little, not big St. Peter's Basilica, St. Anne's little parish church for the people who work in the Vatican. And then went outside the front door and greeted everybody who came just the way I do. The pastor. The bodyguards and his security are going to drive him nuts. To watch out for that. We know what happened to Pope John Paul for public figures. That's tricky. That's very risky. He had Mass a couple days this week for the janitors and the employees of St. Peter's in the Square and the Vatican in their little chapel there. And there was a photo taken from the back of the church. And guess who's sitting in the back row? This guy with a white zucchetto on and a white cassock. Pope Francis. The Pope in the back row. Now, I do not believe he wanted to be the first one out of church. And that's for all you St. Margaret Mary's folks gathered here today. It does not apply to visitors. This is a little between us. He phoned his paperboy in Argentina to discontinue his subscription. Maybe he really wants to go back there. I don't blame him. The homesickness of what this means must be a big deal. All I'm saying, all these little things that the whole world's watching now, I know I am. I click on that Vatican website every day. What did he do today? It's refreshing. We're not used to people in authority, including popes, doing the humble, ordinary thing. And when that happens, it gets our attention. And it's kind of like, I can relate to that. He's just like I am. So is Jesus. He came to be like us in all things and to model for us what this is really all about. Because the humility of our life is going to call upon us to put ourselves second and others first. That means giving way when it is time to give way, because that's what love requires. The sacrifice of love is placing ourselves as servants to the other. Even in this gospel, Jesus is going to his death, and his disciples, who are in the slow learner group, are still fighting over who's going to be in charge. Who's the greatest? They didn't get it. We don't get it. This is a work of a lifetime. Who is going to be the greatest? And Jesus overheard, and what does he say? It's not going to be like the world does this. The greatest among you will be the one who serves the rest. It is for us to determine in our lives, sooner or later, it all catches up with us. Am I here for myself? Or am I here for you? And in what way is that going to be called forth for me? Some of it comes with the territory of our jobs. Some of it, we don't have a clue. I really don't know what may be expected of me today or tomorrow, that what it means to be there for the other and not just simply for my own ends. Selfishness is the great killer. We were not created for ourselves. Jesus models for us that salvation comes with this humbling, this becoming real and placing ourselves not above or below, but at the point where we can be there for each other in the ways of love and the ways that matter most. And usually this is in little tiny footnotes of our daily life. However, this is not just interpersonal. Look at our whole world. Look at the lack of humility that causes violence, war, all of the dysfunctional hatreds and prejudices that lead to the destruction of people. Think of all of the things that go on in the world that are rooted because we don't look at each other with service in mind, but with destruction or destroying. That is the evil that Jesus died for, that we could live, not only in this life, but in the life to come. The great question in life is, not what I'm going to be when I grow up. What am I going to do, and what's in it for me? It's really going to be, how am I called to give everything that has been placed at my disposal in my life for your good and for the good of God's family? Those are those whom we know and love, and those whom we don't. We never know what that's going to mean. Jesus models for us and for the whole world in no clearer sense than he does this week in suffering what he suffers. But we don't stop on Friday. We don't go to Jerusalem and plant flowers at his grave. He is alive. He is risen, which we will celebrate next Sunday. That God collects all of this sadness and brokenness and transforms it into life and love eternal. That is our hope of glory, and the hope of glory for the whole world.